When people tell you this course is useless, ask them what is their right to tell you that a course is useless. What have they accomplished to tell you that a course is useless, that your course is useless? What is their expertise in your line of work that makes them come to tell you that your course is useless? The same thing happened when they just completed UTME, right? There are students, the reason why there was an outrage this time was that certain students that were traditionally excellent, that had that very track record of excellence, we are arbitrarily affected. And so even parents were ready to do anything to ensure that that is reconciled. Because
on this week's episode of University Life Podcast, we have a special guest here. Jameswilliams Gabriel is a distinguished Nigerian academic and thought leader, renowned for his exceptional achievements and dedication to promoting academic excellence among students. James graduated from Nile University of Nigeria, where he consistently achieved a perfect 5.0 GPA, accomplishing this remarkable feat. His outstanding performance earned him the title of overall best graduating student in his faculty, also best graduating student in his department, and first runner-up in the whole school in 2023. In recognition of his academic excellence, he was awarded a full tuition postgraduate scholarship and a cash prize of 750,000 naira. Beyond his personal academic success, James is committed to fostering a culture of academic excellence among students. He has established a thriving academic community that provides science-backed learning strategies and mentorship to over 100,000 students daily. His mission is to reignite the passion for academic excellence in this generation, helping students overcome challenges and achieve their academic goals. James is also an active writer and thought leader, sharing insights on education, personal development, and societal issues. His articles, such as Note to the Firstborns Nursing the First Burns and Do Not Pollute the Springs, reflect his deep understanding of the pressures faced by students and young professionals, offering guidance and encouragement. To further his mission, James has launched the School of Excellence, an online community offering academic mentorship, insightful content, and masterclasses designed to transform students' learning experiences. Through his unwavering commitment to academic excellence and student empowerment, Jameswilliams Gabriel continues to inspire and impact the educational landscape in Nigeria and beyond. This is University Life Podcast, and we're pleased to have you as a guest.
So, first things first, I don't know how to pronounce your middle name. This is just one of a side conversation I just want to ask before we eventually get into everything deeply. Where did you get the name Precious from?
I think I am Precious. We signed an ND agreement never to reveal that without our mutual consent.
Okay, because that is like something everybody following.
Because if we go there, it's going to be much more help than it is right now. So
I just typed your name into ChatGPT and it brought out everything, literally everything.
That's interesting because I don't know that we even trust ChatGPT with my citation though, because of the sources that I'm going to draw from. But it's interesting that it's
yeah, it's got it from a lot of places: LinkedIn, Facebook, and some other blogs. Okay.
I trust that.
Yeah. So, hello guys. Good to have you here. And on this very episode, I have somebody that is very important, a thought leader, an influencer. I have him with me. Before I actually sent you a message, I was like shaking on my bed. I was literally scared that, is this guy going to answer me because he's busy? Is good. Your content sometimes scare me, especially when somebody falls on the wrong side of your content. So I had this fear that he might post me, but eventually I did this because somebody was like, Emerald, you're never going to grow if you keep on letting this type of fear stop you. I just decided to send you a message again that I'm so glad you checked your message and got back to me. So thank you very much for being here with me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yes. So we are just going to get straight into it. So, can you tell me a little about yourself, sir?
Okay, Jameswilliams Gabriel, an award-winning education thought leader and academic excellence consultant, coach, advocate. I'm also a leader of an academic community of over 100,000 Nigerian and non-Nigerian. Pretty much inspired with my own personal story, right? To go for excellence, for academic excellence, right? If it is yet attainable. And we've recorded unprecedented success with that movement. We've been featured on the Vanguard and the Guardian, the work that we've been doing. We've had really, really incredible testimonies, ranging from UTME up to undergraduate level. We've had students come in with certain academic stories that they are not really satisfied with, and you can see some moving from second class lower to hitting 5.0 GPA for the fifth time in a row, right? 5 times consecutively. So such transformations really highlights the work that we are doing. On the other side, I was an intern at the Development Bank of Nigeria, the Performance Development Finance Institution. I was an intern in the strategy and policy unit of the bank, and I just concluded my NYSC, where I worked at quality assurance and users relation lead at Afrilen, a multiple award-winning organization that is democratizing the access to educational content right across to millions of out of school Nigerian kids, African kids. And yeah, that's pretty much a brief summary. So that's to give a brief summary. And yes, I was one of the overall best graduating students from Nile University of Nigeria in 2023. Best graduate student in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, and best graduate student from the Department of Economics. I also won the postgraduate multi-million scholarship, full teaching scholarship to study in the course of choice in the university. I studied under undergraduate full teaching scholarship. So it's on and on and on and on. And I can see why ChatGPT actually said so much about ChatGPT said so much about who Jameswilliams Gabriel is. And I think for the sake of time, we're going to keep it at that.
So, in one of your Facebook posts, you mentioned that you had very good educational background. Do you think that you'll be here if something actually changed when you were very little? Because it might not be common knowledge to most people, but the little things that influence us growing up actually shape the way we see life, shape our career path. And do you think that also played a role in what you've achieved today?
Well, yes, there is no doubt that I grew up with certain privileges and with certain drawbacks. Like I always say, life deals us certain, and all we have to do is pretty much to maximize our situations, to maximize ourselves within those contexts. So yes, I was born into a family, not a wealthy family. It's pretty much a lower middle income, but there was something that my parents did. They prioritized education in a sense, right? Even beyond where we were even living. So where we are living, it was like whenever it rains, it's the house floods. It was really that bad. It's not even like it was kind of completed or something like that. So I don't most times I don't just want to go into the story. But then we lived in certain conditions where even what's mainly considered as necessity was really sacrificed. We grew up without those, and sometimes sacrificing necessities. And I was born into a family that my parents actually prioritized education, and so I think that is an advantage, to be honest with you, because it laid the foundation for every other thing that happened afterwards. So yes, I don't know. I can't say if I would be a different person, but I would most likely could have been a different person if I wasn't born into a family that placed that much prestige and that much value on education, right? And into the best schools, right, possible within the city, despite being insulted and ridiculed by every other person. Right, every other person, that's not a rational decision. What is wrong with you? Like, is he your only child? Like, you have 4 other people and things like that. But despite the noise, we're able to persevere. So I think that does something for everyone that is born within that very environment. So yes, I'm here because of that, let's put it this way, I'm here because of that. And I encourage parents, and that's actually boils into my advocacy for parents to ensure that they give their kids the best education possible, because it's not just an expenditure, it's an investment.
Wow. I don't know what comment to give to that, because considering a lot of other things, like some parents might, just like you said, it is just based on priority. And I'm glad you turned out the way you did, because it would have been very, very on the other side if eventually, after all those sacrifices, it was like you didn't have these academic achievements that really inspired them to continue doing what they did. So yeah, thank you very much for that. But you said in one of your posts as well, most of these questions are coming from your posts that I've been able to gather over time. And it said you've been described by your lecturer as someone who knew what he wanted from the very beginning. What exactly did you want, and how did you stay focused on the goal?
All right. So for that very description, okay, it happened in 400 level, but it was referencing something that happened in 100 level. It was given by Dr. Martha about my use of English lecturer then in 100 level. So 100 level, something happened. Normally people used to sleep in our class. But then there was that very sense that I did everything not to ensure that I was kind of participative and all these kind of things. But what actually struck her was when our mid-semester examination, I don't know for your university, but in our university, there was a mid-semester examination for the major examination. Is that the same for yours?
No, it's not.
It's
No,
not.
we don't do it.
Oh, you guys go directly to the examination?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So for us, there's the mid-semester examination. I think also for UNN and some other universities like that. I know for UNN, I know for UI, there is a mid-semester examination for the major examination. And so it's kind of, I think, takes 40 marks. And so we took the mid-semester examination, and I was given probably 37 over 40. 37 over 40 because I got my scripts back. Though for examinations, we don't get our scripts back, but for that, we got our script back. I got 37 over 40, and I was like wondering, what did I feel? What did I feel? So I went through the page, and I found out that there were some questions that weren't marked, and I got the answers. So after we were done, she said, "Oh, we should give her our script back." I gave her our script back, but then I followed her to her office. See, Ma, I figured out something while I was going through the script. I think there was somewhere that you didn't mark, and that's brought down my score. So in that very sense, I had 37 over 40, pretty much the highest in the class. But I went back to her and I was like, no, Man, there could be an issue. And I ended up having 39 over 40 instead of 37 over 40. She was sort of go smart. And I think she took note of that, and we were really favorable. I think she saw a certain passion in that. She saw a commitment in that. That was 100 level. And so now 400 level, this was when I was going for my project and all this kind of thing. For projects, kind of end of university period, I was talking with my supervisor, but in that very lecturer's room, it was her table, that of my supervisor and someone else. And when I came here, and they were like, Jameswilliams, how are you doing? And my supervisor was like, this is one of my serious students. This is one of my top students in the department. And the matter about then said, Jameswilliams, this is not Jameswilliams. I mean, you don't need to introduce him to me. You don't need to introduce to me. Jameswilliams have always known what he wanted since he came into now university, since he came into the university. So that's that's pretty much the context of that very claim. And what was the second part of the question?
How did you stay focused on that goal to be exceptional?
So I think I'm someone that has been conditioned for excellence in that very sense, in my pursuit of excellence, right from when I was young. So right now, the NBA playoff season is on. I don't know that you follow the NBA, but the NBA playoff season is on, and you have certain stars of the team actually picking up injuries. Right. This is a very critical playoff season, and you have maybe Steph Curry picking up an injury, right, at this very point in time. Very, very important time. And then that's how you had the Timberwolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves actually going through. And a lot of people pin that to the conditioning. And the condition is pretty much, how do you prepare in moments how do you prepare so much for these very moments, these very high stakes moments, right? So that if these things happen, your body can naturally have to stay there because I've already been conditioned to stay in the course of excellence over time. So it wasn't really so much of an issue. It wasn't so much of an issue staying the course. And I think I did something that was really very important. I had to up my motivational anchors, right? I think we might come to this later in a sense, or maybe I will explain later in terms of social media anchors. I was the one that was posting my results online. And when you post your results online, that is pretty much you putting out a challenge to beat this. I'm going to get this again, right? And there was that very reinforcement about that. And there was also the fact that there were goals that I wanted to reach. I wasn't one that just wanted to graduate as a first class student. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to be one of the best graduating students. So that very goal kept grounded in everything that I did, right? Everything that I did going on every semester. So it was the conditioning for excellence, right? I don't see myself doing any other thing, being any other way, because I know that excellence was the identity that best defined me, and I had to just stick that course.
Anytime I read your comment, your content, or go through your content, I wish I met you very, very early in my life. But I'm still glad I did eventually. But you've been a very big source of inspiration to a whole lot of Nigerians. And I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody for actually being who you are.
I say it's my pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much. You've spoken about academic excellence opening doors. What are some doors that academic excellence have opened for you? At least I know most of them, but for the sake of people here listening.
The question is always, how long do you have for that? So, like I've already like I've already set the stage in the sense, right? I wasn't born into a family of wealth and connectedness, right? I almost like based on the virtue of where I was coming from, I almost like had no right to be where I am today in a sense or accomplish what I've accomplished today. I'm meant to do that possibly in late years, but excellence always has a way of opening certain doors of opportunities that has been locked away, almost systematically locked away from us. And my undergraduate level was on the full tuition scholarship, a multi-million full tuition scholarship. Now, university, I always preface this, was about the most expensive university to study at the time I studied there, right? To study economics was 1.2 million per semester. But I was given a full tuition scholarship based on my WAEC exams result and my JAM exam result. That's my WASC and the UTME. I think then if you had above 300 in UTME and above 5 A's, and above 4 A's, you can be able to have 100% scholarship. And I was able to do that, and I got that. So now getting to Nile University on a full tuition scholarship, removing the financial burdens from my parents so that they can focus on all the siblings, and pretty much kind of cashing in an advantage for all the investments they've made all through that while, right, up to that very point. I think around 100 level, I do say that before I graduated, I had over 4 top employment offers, right? 100 level, I was already given the promise of being a graduate assistant in the university because I had a 5.0 GPA in my very first semester. I got that, and the HOD said, James, just continue on this very pattern. You're going to be an assistant lecturer. That's how he put it there. 300 level because I had 100 in course of one of my lecturers, development economics. He is actually a diplomat to the Southeastern Asian countries. He told me, he gave me an employment offer to come and work with this organization if I want to, but I had to think about it and all that. 300 level, that was also when I got my internship at the Development Bank of Nigeria. We had a new HOD, and the HOD was like, he wanted to expose his best students to corporate realities. And there was no way for him to do that rather than on merit. And so he called for the CGP of everyone in the department. Mine was the highest at that point in time, 4.98. And just based on that, I was recommended to the foremost development finance institution in the country, Development Bank of Nigeria. And that happened, and I interned there in the strategy and policy unit. Now, to put that in context, my course mates were people these are people that, like I always say, that they call the president uncle, to call the president uncle. These were kids of the deputy governors, former top executives of government parastatals and so on. And so when that very opportunity came to me, some of them were like, rightly so, like these assets should be democratized. It's not just for the best students. But at that very point in time, you just catch the glimpse of what I've always known, that excellence can even relegate privilege to the background. Whenever merit calls, excellence can relegate privilege to the background. And that was it. And when I graduated from my finals, I graduated as one of the overall best graduate students, the first runner-up, best graduate student from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, best graduate student from Department of Economics. And because of that, I was given another multi-million full tuition scholarship, right, to study at the course of choice for a postgraduate degree. And that was it. And there were there were pretty much all the job opportunities that was there at that very point in time. Like the dean actually called me to say, there is a job opportunity here for you. There is an employment opportunity here for you, so that they will not throw you into one farm in Oshobo for your NYC. You can come and work with us. Like but I had to kind of evaluate what was really best for me at that very point in time. And I had to say, no, let me go to Lagos. Let's try to get Lagos and see whether I get Lagos. And I worked with Afriland, and then Afriland was able to send my Afriland is another story about excellence, in sense, right? Because I came to Lagos without knowing anyone, practically, in the sense of connections, in the sense of organizations. I just had to just type in on my laptop, like edutech companies that I can work in here in Lagos. And I saw Afriland, and I saw that it was a multiple award-winning organization. I had to send them a cool letter. I stated my academic background. I'm a first-class student, one of the very best graduate students. I stated my work in social media. I stated so many things, but pretty much everything was tied to that very story of excellence. I pitched that, and within a week or so, I got a response. And before you know, we had an interview, and after that, it was Afriland sending a letter to NYSC telling them that we want Jameswilliams to work, someone that they've never known. We want Jameswilliams to come and work with us. And now we have fantastic relationships. So now, when I say I do not have the right to actually have access to all this, but you see, excellence actually says no in that very respect. It does the talking. It does the talking for me, and that's pretty much the story that I share, and that's the story that I lead. But we have to kind of stop at it. There are other questions to be answered.
Yes, I understand. So one of the questions here says that students say that first class doesn't guarantee success, but I think this already answered that question, because honestly, like I'm blown away. So, but if somebody is already in 300 level with a low CGPA, when that person started seeing or started gaining access to your content, and that person already has a low CGPA, what advice would you give that person?
Well, I always say that every semester gives you the chance to make it your best yet, right? Every semester gives you the chance. Every semester has a 5.0 GPA, depending on what your point scale is, right, to fight for. So it's more or less like most of it. Prove to yourself that you are who you think you are in that very respect, and see where that leads your CGPA to, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, finish as strongly as possible. Finish as strongly as possible, because something else, the number matters. I've actually been someone that's been intimated with the world of scholarships, sometimes that of employment opportunities and so on. The number matters. The number you end with matters. So there is no world, in no possible world will they say, oh, a 4.49 is the same as a 3.51. The math is clear in that respect. And even for some scholarships that will, it's just open. I know for a scholarship opportunity that is just open to people that have a 3.5 all over 4 GPA. Right. So if you're using a 5 scale, if you're using a 5-point scale, that is like 4.3 something, maybe 4.375 or so. Right. If you're converting it, 4.375 is a second class, upper CGPA, right? But then imagine that you had thought that CGPAs are the same, and then you just let the whole thing spiral down well below that, and then you're before such opportunity. At that very point, you self-disqualify yourself. So there is that very sensitization that even if you feel that your CGPA is you cannot get a first class, for instance, just give your best. Make the most of every semester that you have left, and the number matters. And if you feel that that you didn't make the most of your academic story, your undergraduate story, whatever chapter of life that you decide to open next, just ensure that you script it beautifully and excellently, using the lessons that you've learned and picked from this very phase of life.
As a thought leader and an influencer, you are very popular. I think your Facebook following is very massive, and your WhatsApp channel are also all over the chat. But I am very sure that you've had certain experiences or certain encounters with people who come to you and tell you that it's because you went to a private institute. How do you deal with people trying to discredit your success?
I really think that those people, like, it's a classic situation of those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't. It's really that very situation. Like, with like, what
I
are you
didn't.
going to bring that? I've, I've, with I've been in the rooms with the most excellent, some of the most excellent, most brilliant people that you are, and that's not a conversation, because there is a sense in which our identity is, we are very self-sufficient in our own personal identities of excellence, and we can communicate on that very platform of shared excellence, right? So that is not even the conversation that comes up. It's people who want to latch on, they do not have a self-sufficient identity, and they want to latch on. And this is what you see, you kind of notice with some of the people that do this. They want to latch on their identity to their institutions because they lack one themselves. So it's kind of right to cling on to that. But at the end of the day, James was a scholarship student. It was now the university that was paid for my fees. I was there because now the university said, we're going to pay. Don't worry, James, come. You're going to pay for you. We're going to pay for your fees, right? So most of these things that when you go to the basics, fundamental, you see how really, right? Because all of us, we were in secondary school together, right? And these are students. For example, someone like me, I know I represented my school in scholarships, in competitions, right? I represented my school in the national spelling bee. I represented my school in the cowboy competition. I actually represented Cross River State at the national levels of the national cowboy competition in 2018. So we actually have a track record coming back from secondary school of dominating the classes and being excellent at that very point in time. And so the choice of private university or public university changes what? What does that change exactly? That the very fact that the person that was excellent, right, based on standardized metrics against you. So about me, I've grown a thick skin over that. That doesn't really bother me. But about some other people out there, especially students that maybe in 100 level, 200 level, that are really impressionable, right, and are really almost easily swayed and made to feel less of themselves, right, for being excellent. These are people that are making this argument for, right, these students were the ones that dominated the classes right there in secondary school. Most of them, I went to a private secondary school, an elite private secondary school, people by school there in Cross River State, and most of my classmates were very close to government. These were children of senators, these were children of House of Rep leaders in Cross River State. And if you look at the movements, most of them don't move to public universities. It's because they're optimizing for something different. They're not really optimizing for, we just want to go to university. They're optimizing for the opportunities that comes by going to certain universities, right? It's more or less, they know the importance of that very filter. They understand the importance of the people you study with, right? They understand how important the people you study with is, right? Just as what you study. The people you study with is just as important as what you study. So in that very sense, they kind of optimize for such places. So at the end of the day, even the best students from secondary school are going to places like Bayes University, Nile University, Abuad, Afe Babalola University, Covenant University, American University of Nigeria, Elizabeth University, the middle class, in the upper middle class and upper class societies. They do not traditionally go to public university, they go to private university. But if they were excellent, then do you feel that just by going to private university cancels anything, right? Why when you get into positions where You get into positions where you meet other excellent people, even from public universities and private universities. That can never be a conversation because we actually connect on something much more higher than kind of grasping onto identities that's possibly they've grown out of. Yeah, I think it's just a classic case of those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind. It's the simple as that. When you submit your CV to institute, just simply looking at your CGPA and your transcript. I did my internship development back of Nigeria. The lady that was sitting by the side of me was a valedictorian from American University of Nigeria. This is development back of Nigeria, mind you, right? Was a valedictorian from American University of Nigeria. Uche, that was working with the World Bank sector of our bank, graduated from Bayes University. My direct supervisor, Jeremy, he's now the president of the bank. Graduated from Covenant University. Deji graduated from Babcock University. So in that very sense, like this, and when we are talking about this an institution that is the foremost development finance institution of the country, and you're not being discriminated based on your degree. So if the world of opportunity is not discriminated based on that, why do you pay attention to it don't matter in the things? Just fire on with your excellence, get your proof wherever you are, shine your light. That is what matters.
But from what you've said, you've actually had a very long track record of excellence. So is it that you are, I think obviously you are naturally intelligent, but do you spend extra hours studying, or you just have a more defined way of actually studying? Do you study harder, or you study smarter, or you just spend more time?
A lot of that, a lot of study methods and techniques, they are things that are really deconstructed in my master classes, my webinars. I do not really hold so much emphasis on studying long or studying smart. My emphasis is spiritual right. And what you're optimizing, right? You're optimizing for your understanding of what you've learned, of what you've been taught to the examiner, right? Every bit of that very sentence is important, as I do show people, as I do tell people, like examination is not the test of what is a test of what that you know. It's not a test of the it's a test of how you understand to someone else. So even an understanding of really matter. And that's you see all this critique of to be a first class student, you must learn or you must learn how to craft, you must learn how to move on. And what's deeper, what the thing that is deeper, the deeper thing going on is that first class students are able to understand, and they're able to understand how they can communicate that understanding to an audience in the language of an audience. So if for example, ask you, Emerald, what is sport? And maybe if a 5-year-old is to tell you what's sport, how are you going to explain that? Well, whatever way you explain that, you're going to explain that in a language that the 5-year-old can understand. Now, you know what you know, but in communicating, you try to communicate it in a way that that 5-year-old can easily understand. So in this very situation, we are communicating our understanding, right, to an audience, and that audience is our examiner. And we've picked up the language, we've picked up the vocabulary level of the lecturer, we've picked up the leniency level of the lecturer, we picked up the marking style of the lecturer from assessments and so on and so forth. So we are actually working with a data point of who this lecturer is, and we've retrofitted our answer to actually be one that the lecturer can recognize as correct. So in that very sense, there is a deeper game going on. And the people that are uninitiated in a sense will look at that and just say, no, that is cramming, the cram. But you cannot cram yourself in. You cannot cram yourself to a first class in university. It's not even possible. And the reason why that's not really possible is because look at your examination questions. What form did they take? Have you ever seen a question that's just all true is list and mention or enumerate? I think you can cram for a list, mention, and enumerate. But there's always a discourse element. There's always an expatiate element. There's always a critique element. There's always exactly. So there is always that very point where you cannot really waffle your way through. You necessarily need to demonstrate a competence, demonstrate your understanding. That is why students do whatever they do and maybe have a B instead of an A. because these students, those that are top students, know that they have to demonstrate an understanding, and you do not do that by just cramming. You do not cram. Some lecturers, there are some kind of questions that were really very funny. For example, you're seeing something like, what is economics? So you're seeing something like, what is economics? And then by the time 15 marks or 20 marks or 30 marks, what cramming is going to save you from that? What cramming is going to save you from that? You necessarily need to demonstrate and understand. That's where you have to start confessing all your sins, confessing all your understanding at that very point in time. That's where that goes back. So when you have to cram to actually be a first class, and I'm just like, what are you guys saying? Because you do not understand the art that is needed to be able to achieve this. It's a strong manning of a much more complex art, a much more complex game, and most of these things is just to discredit. It's just to discredit the value. It's just the same as you say about private university, public university, and just that. It's just to kind of discredit and water down the things, the details that go into earning these very degrees. And it's not something that we should really worry about, only in the sense that it affects people that are really very gullible, that do not understand. And that's the reason why I do what I do and try to articulate these things in the way that I do. So I do not focus so much on reading long. That is not my goal. Some people tell me, James, how many hours do you read? And I always tell them that I don't know how many hours that I read, because that is not the metric that I'm optimizing for. What I'm optimizing for is effectiveness. Because I don't know, maybe Emerald, I don't know for your university though. I've never gone into a university to an examination and they told me how many hours did you read. Since how many weeks have you been preparing for this examination? I've not seen that as a question. What's being tested is the effectiveness of what you've read. What's being tested is, can you be able to answer this question? Every other thing is kind of secondary. And what I focus is to get myself in a position where I can demonstrate the effectiveness of what I've read, of how long I've read, that it was effective. That could be 2 minutes. That could be 3 minutes. That could be just glancing. That could be even said, not even reading at all, because I've understood every other thing when it was being taught the first time rightly. I don't miss lectures in that very sense. So I kind of understood it once the lecture was going on. So it's very dynamic in a sense. And that was pretty much it for me. Hours. It focused on effectiveness, not just the hours. That's pretty much.
Okay, thank you very much. But like you said, you study probably much more differently than most people. What role did community play? Like, do you have people that you study together with, or how do you stay away from distraction? There's this particular post where you made mention of something like that. I think it's called as iron sharpness, maybe the wood in you. I tried looking for that post, I couldn't find it. So you mentioned something about a particular topic circulating students before the examination. So can you just shed more light on that? What role does community or group reading play in academic success?
Okay, I have a pretty much unorthodox approach to study groups. I was one that read alone. That was my best way of understanding anything I'm reading, right? Because it was almost self-evident in a sense, right, that if there was anything I couldn't crack, that is a problem that I have to pretty much try to solve myself. I really didn't have anybody to say, please help me and solve this. I'm almost always at the receiving end of that. So if I left my house or whatever be my private study place to where they are group reading, I'll always be at the end of, James, can you help us solve this? Can you help us solve this? And to the extent that I've not yet been prepared for that, I'm going to be distracted, ultimately going to the examination hall just with an illusion of competence, not really sure of what I was doing. And that's the reason why so many people say, oh, I taught them and I went to examination, I was blank. Is because you didn't really show up your foundation. You didn't really ensure that you had gotten this thing rightly before you started teaching others. As a matter of principle, during university, I do not leave my house or unless I feel that I'm prepared for the examination. So I really have to be in a position where I can comfortably sit for the examination on my own before going for examination. Now, when I then reach the university and other students are studying, I can now have that freedom, I have that competence freedom right now to go from maybe chair to chair, table to table, kind of have the small talks. And then that's when you can then see, oh, that your preparation maybe is not really enough. So sometimes that happened. I think that was for monetary economics. I remember coming to the library. I was pretty much maybe 2 hours to the examination. I went to the library because some of my classmates were like, James, we're in the library, come and meet us there. So I went to the library, and as I was sitting down and going through whatever I was going through, Hamida, one of my classmates, came to me. I was like, James, I'm finding it hard to solve this. Can you help me with it? I looked at it and I was just like, where is this coming from? And that was actually a past question that they've been solving, and it's not really in second. But she was like, James, I do not really understand this. And I looked at it. I was like, well, okay. But I didn't really understand it either. So it was more or less like my preparation wasn't enough. And I was scared in the sense that when I see certain questions, I know the probability of them resurfacing. That is the whole point. That is the art of being a top student and being a first class student. You have there is a very top level of discernment. It is a characteristic that every first class student have. And every first class student has that level of discernment. And so I was able to discern that this question is likely to resurface or something similar to it. And I knew I was a problem because I couldn't solve it. And right there, while I was talking to Hamida, I told Hamida to give me some minutes. While I was doing that, I met Ali. Ali was a friend of mine. Ali was just like, James, I saw that past question, but the problem was that I saw that past question. I was able to get the answers online. But the problem is that I do not understand the answers, and it's not something that I can cram. Can you explain it to me? So right there and then, I had the question and I had the answers, and all I had to do was pretty much explain to them what it was. They'll give me a minute. I understood what it was, and I explained to them. When we went to the examination hall, it was pretty much what was repeated, and I ended up with a 96. Right in that very course. That should be what's the name? That should be monetary economics. But that is the level of what you can call term group study comes in. And there's something called the Matthew principle. And the Matthew principle goes like this, right? To him that has, more will be given. And to him that has not, more will be taken. So in a sense that it is pretty much tied to the principle of, right, kind of 20% of the people have 80% of the resources. Like the rich keep getting richer while the poor keep getting poorer. At very respect. And so it's the same thing with academics, right? Those people that are top students actually almost kind of have a lot of advantages in the game that comes with being excellent. For example, Hamida coming to me with a past question that wasn't a circulation because she didn't understand it. So if it was something that she understood, it's almost like the case I'm going to understand it. So I won't have a problem with that in the examination. But given that so many students do not get it, they are most likely to come to the person that is likely to explain it, and that was James. And now I have access just by being me. We could go different places with this. There are 4 divisions of luck, right? There's luck. There's let me not just go there, but there are 4 divisions of luck, and this one plays into the luck by uniqueness. Luck by uniqueness, by you being just unique, being who you are. There are certain kinds of luck that finds you. There are certain types of luck that finds you. So there are divisions of luck. There is blind luck. I think there's luck by motion. There is luck by serendipity, something like serendipity, and then there is luck by uniqueness. So just by being who you are, there are certain lucks that kind of finds you where you are. And in that very case, that is what being a top student, being an established top student actually brings to you. And yeah, so my own attitude to group study, as it is being termed, is for me to be prepared first. I have to be prepared first. And I do not treat group study as a core of my academic game. I treat it as a complement. It is not a core, it's a complement. So when I'm done actually laying the foundations, when I'm done paying attention to the core of my understanding and being able to demonstrate whatever I've read, I can then go and start doing the small talks and maybe getting people distracted, whatever it is, or maybe them get to be distracted, whatever it is just playing around. We can do that. We can do that. If that's what's happening. And if you want to tell me, oh James, I have a question, and please can you help me with that? We can do that because I have already gotten my core rightly. So the group study is actually to check up whether there is any part that I'm missing. Is there anything I'm missing? Is there any way? And even if I'm explaining something to people that do not understand it, it's pretty much reinforcing my own understanding. Exactly. So it's kind of reinforcing my own understanding through active recall and all this and explanation and teaching. So it's reinforcing my own understanding. But if I don't have that core, it's going to be a problem. So the problem, the mistake so many students are making is that they're treating group study as the core and then personal study as the complement. And then they all get distracted because they don't keep quiet during group study. Everyone is talking, everyone wants to be this, everyone wants to be this. And then the little that you feel that you know, you don't really know. And then you get to examination hall, you're just like, oh, we covered this thing, but you can't remember because it was the complement, not the core. So try to do your personal study first. Shore it up rightly. Then go to the group and then try to do whatever you want to do with the group and try to possibly understand and learn more and find out places that you might have been missing. It's really up to the student to do. And something else before I leave that. The more you show up to a group study prepared, the more you get that very lock from uniqueness. So if every time you come for a group study and they have a question and you are the one that has the answers, so even if there is a secret past question in circulation and they do not understand it, who is the person they're going to come to? It is you.
You. Okay, wow, that's really nice.
Exactly.
So now let's go into a little bit more of the type of universities. You said in your own school, you guys have midterm exams, right? But in my own school, I'll use my school as an example. In my own school, we don't have midterm examinations. We just have tests, CA, attendance, and then exams. So there's no way you can actually know what you need to add more, because I saw one of your posts calculating the best way to actually know what you need to get an A in the course, in a particular course, your midterm results and the final examination. But in schools where those things they don't really do things like that. It is just like CA, and most of our CAs are just allocated. I've experienced that. I had a perfect score in one of my tests, and another perfect score in one of my tests, another test, that same course. And God, when I saw the result, the CA was way below everything I got, even combined together and divided by 2 or 3. It was way below that. So I wanted to approach that lecturer and tell that lecturer that, sir, this is not what I had in my CA, the test that we did. I didn't miss any class because attendance is very important in my own department. I wanted to approach him, but my classmates told me that this school, when you do something like that, approaching a lecturer and telling them that this is not what I had in my test, they are going to give you problem. So what do you think students like that can do?
All right. So I think it is a very touchy subject on so many levels. So there are two things that I can say. During my final year, I badly wanted to graduate with a 5.0 GPA. I needed to graduate with a 5.0 GPA. And that was because I saw my results. My CGPA at the time was 4.94. And I needed to graduate with 4.95, right, to feel better about other things. But then the very first subject that came out, that we had the results, it was a B. It was a B in my final year. And what made it complicated was that very B was in a course that was taken. It wasn't even a course from my department. It was a
It
course
was a
that was
borrowed
taken
course.
from the business administration department. And it was a course to worsen the situation. It was a course taken by the head of department of that very department. So it was taken by the HOD. the HOD of that department, or business admin department. So it was a very complicated situation at that very point, and I'm having a B. And but then there was something that was able to save me, and that's something else when people compare private university, public university. It's like we are much more alike than it is different. Because when I first had my first B, I wanted to complain. I went to certain advisors, and they told me that James, don't do that here. You do not complain here. You do not complain there. And I was just like, why? Right. So I let 900 level B slide. But this one I was just like, no, I don't think I will let it slide. And the reason why I couldn't let it slide this time because there was something I had perfected. In Japan, there is this very concept called the nemawashi technique. Nemawashi technique. And the idea of the nemawashi technique is that it's really an agricultural term. So let's just say you want to transplant a tree from one position, right, from one farm to another. What you do firstly with the nemawashi technique is that you dig a trench around the roots of that tree, right? You kind of dig a trench, like possibly a trench, right? Kind of holes around the tree, and you carry the soil from that very place that you want to transplant this tree to. You carry that very soil and you fill it in with that in that trench. So the end goal of that is to ensure that before you transplant this tree to that soil, the root has already adapted to this very soil, the soil that you want to transplant it to. That's the idea of the demolition technique. You're priming the roots to get kind of used to the soil that is about to be transplanted into. And it was the same thing academically, right? As I was growing my reputation from my 100 level to my 400 level, I had to perfect the art of the Nemawashi technique. And that happened during lectures. The very fact of increasing, so there's something that I call the sentiment score, increasing your sentiment score, right? You know, there are some students that even, and this is not to be insensitive to your situation, right? But there are some students that if the lecturer sees that they're having a B or a C, they're automatically questioning that. Sometimes they're even questioning their marking guide. Like, how can this student have this? There are some students that it goes that very way for them. Same thing happened in the just completed UTME, right? There are students, the reason why there was an outrage this time was that certain students that were traditionally excellent, that had that very track record of excellence, we are arbitrarily affected. And so even parents were ready to do anything to ensure that that is reconciled because these are their best. Even schools were ready to do anything because these were their best students in a sense. So there's some students that will have certain grades and just like, nah, that's not his. And some teachers can be able to, lecturers can be able to sympathize to that. And there's something about being that student, like developing yourself to be that student. That's if you go to a lecturer to say, man, I don't think that this, I don't know whether there is an issue here, but I just want to learn the mistake that I made. You're not going there to be antagonistic. You're not going there to be like, I am right, you're wrong. It's pretty much like, it's almost like passive. Like the message is there, but you're not coming off as antagonistic. Like, and that was what I did during my time. I told her, she said, how are you doing? Are you fine? Most students don't really pay attention to our classes. But I do, and there was a time, and strangely enough, there was a time we were talking about the contracts of employees, and we are talking about the fairness of contracts and so on and so forth. And somehow, talking about fairness, the issue of now in university, you have to pay for remarking. You have to pay for remarking, and if it is remarked and it's found out that the fault was from the lecturer, so you're not giving back the payment fee. A lot hinges on your sentiment score.
Students are saying that lecturers in private institutions tend to mark more intentionally than lecturers in private institutions. It's like they mark based on whatever you have. But in private institutions, it's like lecturers don't even want you to like pass with good grades and good grades. So they intentionally find reasons for them to like cut off your marks little by little, nip it down so that you don't have good grades. And Chinaza Favor made a post on Facebook last week complaining about the same thing. And going through the comment section, a lot of people shared similar experiences that it's like these lecturers are intentionally cutting down marks and just preventing students from having good grades. So I want to ask you, is it actually true? Because everybody is like a debate against private institutions and public institutions and their marking methods.
Okay, so now about the Chinaza favors post, I do not. Chinaza is someone that I know and someone that we kind of have we've met at some point. I can't really speak to her experience. I can't speak to it because it's not something that I can personally verify. It could definitely be true. So to the Chinaza favors anecdote, though Chinaza is someone that I've met, we've had interactions, it could definitely most likely be true. I can't speak to the veracity of it. As so far as you can speak to my own experience, or anyone else can speak directly to my own experience. So in science, there's something called anecdotal evidences, and it is just what it is. So on that very note, the whole position that private universities tend to be much more when they are marking the scripts of the students. I think that is something that should be left for studies, right? Unbiased studies to take note of them. Because if we are to argue that there are so many things that could be brought up, we had lecturers that were quote unquote assholes, right? Lecturers that we knew possibly weren't even marking our scripts or something like that. I think we had one or two of some of them. But I think in whatever university you are, that isn't strictly the norm, right? That isn't strictly the norm, right? There are much more lecturers that you do not have complaints about than lecturers that you have complaints about per semester. And even despite that, I think the question most times the questions that I do ask, and I tell public university students to ask is, and now what? And now what? Let your CGPA spiral downwards. Don't give your best during examinations, right? Just act like someone that is very nihilist about the outcome. Don't even attend. Why should you attend lectures if you feel if it is the kind of the view that it doesn't matter ultimately, right? Why don't give your best in the examination if you're holding the view that it's not going to matter? Then possibly it's not going to matter, but in the final analysis, it serves your interest to act in a way that it matters, right? What you're going to put forward during examinations matters. And I think that should be the attitude in university. I know, for example, Unilag. I think we celebrated. Remind me if I'm wrong. We celebrated someone graduating, not just someone. I think two people, Samuel and someone else, graduating with a 5.0 CGPA from Unilag. Yes, it's happened recently. I think the audience can actually check that out. So Samuel and someone else had the 5.0 GPA. I think Samuel studied industrial mathematics or something like that, and he went to Unilag. And I'm sure that's where Chinaza is going to. And not to reduce Chinaza's experience, but it's to give you an idea that possibly they were at the back end of such. So there are two possibilities. Possibly they were at the back end of such lecturers with such reputations, and still they had to meet every semester with the belief that, and now what believe that, you know what, I'm going to give in my best. And oftentimes, as we can see from their result, having A's all through, it was the case that they came out excellently every semester. And the second possibility is that possibly all lecturers that they faced throughout their stay were great lecturers, efficient lecturers that didn't really condone inefficiency, or possibly they condoned inefficiency, but it was not in such a significant manner that it gave them a B instead of an A. So either way, it could be the case that yes, that they're actually lecturers that are in university that are actually giving you what you give them, or something close to that. Or the second one is that there could be lecturers that actually are very inefficient, right? Very, very inefficient. But for some reasons, for some students, that inefficiency doesn't really affect them. So you have to kind of think it's kind of a game theory situation where you yourself, I don't think anyone should be married to excuses. Now, if there are inefficiencies, by all means, call it out. But also, there is also a place of strategy. Now, what strategy helps these students to be able to have a 5.0 CGPA despite all the inefficiencies, what strategy did they employ? And that should be your strategy. If people are able to kind of overcome such hurdles, your business right now is to figure out how they did and adjust your strategy likewise. So that's the game theory situation. And there is a way to adjust your strategy. Like I said, even in private universities, there are lecturers like that. I think people often forget that most of the people that come to private universities, some of these major lecturers, especially in some of these core courses, most of them are actually they are lecturers in public universities, as people that just recently resigned for public universities, right? Some of the visiting lecturers are people from public universities. And in that very sense, I don't really think attitude changes. But even though it is not, for the sake of argument, let's just lay it out. Your position to be, and now what? And now what? What's the pragmatic step? What else? Do I have to go for remarking? And I think we've talked about this in previous conversation about the remarking, and so on and so forth. And so in the case where someone like Samuel had a 5.0 CGPA despite everything, if he was able to do that despite having lecturers that are possibly out to kind of downgrade your mark or not give you the most possible, there's a reason why these students still scale through. And that is something called the sentiment score. There's some students that teachers already build and lecturers already build an affinity to. There are some students, lecturers that really look out for their results. There are some students that lecturers actually pride in their results, like this is my student. And you build that reputation over time from 100 level, 200 level, 300 level, 400 level to be that student that even a lecturer cannot in all good conscience fail. And likely someone like Samuel that had a 5.0 GPC, he was of that ilk. And so how do you build yourself to be in that very position that despite the hurdles, you will still win the excellence game? So I think that is the posture. I'm not here for the argument that should be up for studies. I think studies could take that up within the educational circle, and we can have a definite answer. Else it's just anecdotes from people just talking across places, because most public universities have not been, most public university students have not been in private universities, right? And most private university students have not been in public universities. And so they are kind of speaking out of, there's a kind of a projection going out based on kind of laid out biases and sentiments. The only thing that can cut through that is an unbiased study, and that is left for those within the
educational system,
educational space to conduct. The question should be, and now what? This is my situation. This is what I'm facing, right? This is the cards that I have. How do I make the most of it and still win? Because like it or not, there are students that are still going to win despite those challenges. There's definitely going to be a best graduating student. There's definitely going to be a best graduating student. And the question is, are you going to be that person? Despite the challenge, are you going to be the best graduating student in your set or your faculty? It's up to you and your ability to kind of adapt to situations and find strategies that helps you to overcome certain hurdles and things that you might think are setbacks. So it's really up to you to always ask the question, and now what? And then you take a pragmatic step. That's what I have to say for that.
So I guess people who are concerned should help us look into that as well, because most students actually feel like universities are changing their destinies.
It is a very serious situation. I'm not really going to downplay that. Even when I experienced it in my private university, it's something that we had to find a way around, and we had to do that very tactfully because of the person that does it, that is doing it, the position within the university, the politics around that. And again, I keep talking about sentiment points. Then there are students that are known to be unserious by the faculty and everyone else. And so when such students bring up complaints, even the HOD that is possibly that's taking one course or the other within that department, just like, why are you disturbing me? But then there are students that are going to bring up certain concerns, and people are going to take it really seriously, right? There are certain students that will bring up certain concerns. And it's not just bringing up certain concerns, it's also articulating it intelligently and putting it in such a way that even the department understands that it's in their best interest to curb it. It's in their best interest to put an end to this. So that very articulation, there are certain students that can do that and that can take it up. And that was a situation during our own period. That was a situation during our own period in handling things like that. But before you can get to those stories, just ask yourself anything you can do to come out really safe and to come out with excellent results, please do it. And there is a whole lot of game that goes into that. Even the most terrifying and terrific lecturer, there's still going to be a highest in that very course. And I don't think students should be as afraid. Yes. And I don't think, and this is also a very tenuous point, I don't think students should be as afraid of remarking as they think it is. Now, there are some students that should be afraid. There are some students that should be afraid. Those ones that, you know, if you decide to go for remarking and you have a B, you're not sure whether you're going to, possibly you're going to come out with an F, because you're not sure of what you wrote and you're not sure of your sentiment point, right? Your sentiment score of how other lecturers can vouch for you. There are certain things that will go before the Senate, or the HOD, and the HOD said these students cannot have this result. It has happened. I have someone from and I run the community, like I said, I run the community of over 100,000 students, and I've run this very question by them. And we have students from UNIU. Her name is, there's one very, very wonderful member. Her name is Blessing. Blessing actually went for a remarking in UNIU, where that's a definite public university. And when they saw the results, even the HOD was like, my Blessing cannot have these results. And so they had to look into it. And she later on had an A, right? Because there was a sentiment score that was already in play that made even people that are the higher up say, no, these students cannot have this result. What is the problem? And so you have to be that CGPA. If there was any lecturer, if all the lecturers know that this is an excellent student, this is an exceptional student, and then one lecturer is giving him a C just from nowhere, and heaven help that lecturer is from another department, or maybe from another visiting lecturer. The way the faculty, the way the department will rise, you think it's world war. You think it's world war. That is because he has developed that very track record. Has developed the track record. He has developed the sentiment point. And there is something about top students and their ability to articulate certain things rightly and understand that and synthesize that into a strong case for themselves, but not just themselves, for the faculty and everyone. Because it's a thing of pride for every department to say that we had the best graduating student this year. It's a thing of pride. We had the best graduating student. The best graduating student in the university came from this department, or it came from this faculty. It's a thing of pride. And so if a student is able to articulate, not just I want to have an A, but this thing is affecting this department, or it would be in the best interest for this department to actually look into this. That is the way you play the politics of remarking rightly. And I think this is something that I am to kind of flesh out in my upcoming, one of my upcoming master classes about dominating examinations, especially when you're going for remarking. Play the game rightly from 100 levels, so that when you have a problem, lecturers will say, this is not a student that should be having a problem. This is not a student that should be having a problem. But if you go to classes and you're very anonymous, nobody can even say this is who you are. They don't even know you. Or if they know you to be the one that is very troublesome, the one that is coming with a sheet of paper, that's coming with a sheet of paper as your notes. You don't even have. If you're that kind of person and you're then coming to complain about scores, like they'll tell you whatever they gave you a C. Wow, they gave you a C. You should be happy. You should be happy because it's me. I could have given you a D, an E. You're not serious. You're coming to class and you're sleeping. You're coming to class and you're only. So you have to know the kind of student you are before you push out for your remark and to play the politics right. So all those sentiments, these are things that you build with time. These are things that you build with time, brick by brick, being courteous during classes, being participative, being that student that is known to be serious and excellent, being that student that is known to actually make your lecturers feel heard and understood. So all in all, just be the student that has earned the right to be heard. Just be the student that has earned the right to be heard. That is the way you win the remarking game. That's the way you win the sentiment game, ultimately. And I don't think there are some students that lecturers won't want to fail. Like you can see results, and then one student is having an A, and every other person is having a C, a D, an E, and F. It's not that you are not. It's not that you are not worthy to have that, but it's just that there are some students that lecturers know you can't play with this person because he has a track record and possibly he has a relationship with the HOD. People know him to be excellent, and so you don't want anything. There is a repercussion to actually fail these certain students, and that's the student that you want to be. If there's one student, you should be that student that have earned the right to be heard and the right to earn the marks that you rightly deserve.
Thank you for that. I think that actually entered a lot of areas that I had more intention of asking, but said that. So thank you very much. I'm certain that you saw Reno's post, Reno Omokiri, I guess, in one of his viral posts when he said, students are studying useless courses and people should stop studying useless courses. These are the type of courses they should be studying. What do you think about that? In your opinion, are there useless courses in universities?
So your course is as you allow it to be, right? Even if you study medicine and you graduate as best graduating students, if you decide not to practice, if you decide not to make the most of it, if you decide not to apply the knowledge you garnered from it, if you decide not to understand the business of it and the practicality of it and to implement it, it's going to be quote unquote useless. So whatever you study, it's really at the usefulness is directly proportional to how your motivation and your ability to actually to bring to life its fruits and its importance. And so it's kind of a very subjective thing on so many levels. And that is the reason why certain Reynolds sitting from wherever I been under whatever motivation. That's why he cannot dictate what it is, what your course choice means for you, especially if you chose it yourself. You're like, I want to study this. And I just don't want to make this a conversation about persons, right? It limits the discourse, it cheapens the discourse. But you are talking about Reno, like you're asking for his expertise and he standardized expertise. What did Reno study and what is his accomplishment aside being possibly the spokesman for Goodluck Jonathan, which is almost like a aside from political jobbing, what is it that he does, right? What is it that he does? What his dad was a judge, if I remember correctly. His dad was he's a very renowned judge. He comes from a line of royalty, in a sense, traced down to the Olu of Warri and so on and so forth. And these are people, all of them there was a very strict adherence to the benefit of education. It's strict, they had to go to school. They had to go up to the university level. That's the Omokri heritage, in a sense, right? So for someone like that to then come up and then tell you, I don't even know what course he studied in university. That's really up to him. But in terms of when people tell you this course is useless, ask them what is their right to tell you that a course is useless. What have they accomplished, like to tell you that a course is useless, that your course is useless? What is their expertise in your line of work that makes them come to tell you that your course is useless? What is their understanding of your life and your own personal journey, right? Or your own personal journey, and the purpose you're living out, like to tell you that the course is useless, that your course is useless.
So thank you very much for being here with me, James. I so much appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yes. Okay. So, guys, if you've listened to this stage, I think you should know about James and his webinars and his courses. James actually has a lot of webinars. There is one called Read and Recall, if I'm right. And there's this one that just ended called Recall Like a First Class Student. So I think James is opening another wait list to that particular webinar. And if you are interested in having academic success, you can actually go to his page and check it out.